What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Clutch Crew Sports. I'm your lead host, Zach, and on this episode, we're going to cover some different topics, talking about the new NFL CBA, Joe Burrow, and some XFL topics. Now, let me introduce you to the rest of the crew.
What's going on, guys? It's me, Connor. You know me as the co-host with the most and the reigning Sports Jeopardy champion. And I'm excited to be here to talk about the CBA and the XFL. And ready to get it going.
Yeah, let's go. Before we start our episode, guys, this is something new that we've came out with. We haven't really promoted it yet, but we decided to put up a merchandise store through Teespring as a partner. So this is still very new for us, but we have some products already made. We'll be adjusting the prices and lowering them down, so don't be appalled if you see a high price on these items. But basically, we have anything and everything you could want with Clutch Crew Sports logo on it. So we've got phone cases, mugs, all kinds of T-shirts, tank tops, long sleeves, hoodies. If there's any special requests that you guys want us to do, we can easily do them. This website allows you to make like pillows, posters, towels, a lot of different other unique items that you can customize. So just let us know. We actually just made an email account today too, so that's a great way to start our email account. But just email clutchcrewsports@gmail.com. That's clutchcrewsports@gmail.com. Email any suggestions if you've got any designed like artwork or something that you want to be featured, like a fan art sort of thing. If we can make it work on a shirt or a mug or something, we'll do it for you. And like I said, these prices will be adjusted. But check it out. It's teespring.com/stores/clutch-crew-sports-merch. And I'll put the link in the descriptions and stuff so you can easily find it. But this is our newest thing going on, this merch store. So check it out. Get something. I've got some stuff coming on the way. So I'll post pictures when it comes. But check it out. It's pretty fun. So we'll get into the episode now. So we talked about the types of things we'll be doing in this episode. So we're going to talk, like I said, about the CBA. We'll talk about Burrow, and we'll talk about the XFL, and we'll give our first ever XFL power ranking. So now that we've gotten a chance to watch the games, watch these brand new teams for the first couple weeks, we have a lot more information to make power rankings off of. So we'll start, though, talking about the NFL first, still the king of football. And the big news that's going to be happening this offseason is the CBA. And right now we're at a crucial point when we're recording this episode because so far the owners have approved the CBA, the players' reps have approved it, and now it's just got to pass the actual players. So the roughly 2,000 players in the NFL are going to be voting. I'm not sure when on this, but fairly soon. And they just need a simple majority for it to pass. And then all the rules and all the new things that's going to be coming along in the CBA will be included here. So basically the big new thing in the CBA is the 17th game. There's a lot of other smaller things. Like I said, you can expand 2 players from 53 to 55. I guess the extra playoff team, that's another big thing. So the playoffs are going to now be expanded to 14 teams, and then that 2 seed has to play on wildcard weekend. So there will be 3 games per conference on wildcard weekend, only 1 bye per conference. So that's a pretty big change, but revenue is expected to go up to 48%. And with that 17th game, there's going to be a lot more revenue. So contracts are going to be a lot bigger than they have been before. Let me see if there's any. Okay, so this is how the vote went. So it was 17-14 from the representatives in favor of this deal. And the 17-game season was originally approved by the owners. And the PA, they were kind of split on this originally, but then they decided to go with it. But basically, because Connor, you originally were telling me you didn't think that 17 games is going to happen. Where do you think now? Do you think this is going to get passed? in one go by the players, or you think it's going to have to go back to the table?
I think it's going to have to go back to the table. I don't really, because everything that I've heard from all the players is that the players aren't terribly happy about it, or at least that there's this big division in the players. Like there's players that want it, but then there's some players, like I know JJ Watt's been like a big outspoken member of the Players Association that's been against it. And a lot of it stems from the fact that, they already think that a 16 game season is too long and too dangerous, and adding another game is just like even more dangerous, more detrimental to their health. So, because I don't think the playoff thing, I don't think is that controversial. I mean, because, that'd just be good for other teams, whoever is like the first team out. Oh, great. Now you can get a chance to be in the playoffs, like more teams. But I really think it's that 17th game that, and people were saying like, oh, well, they're taking away one preseason game. Well, that doesn't really do much because most of the players don't play in the preseason anyway. It's the regular season that is when they're playing. And when you're adding that one more game that they're going to be playing 60 full minutes of, it, takes a toll on them and the players aren't happy about it. So I don't know if I'm certainly confident that it won't get passed eventually, but I don't think it's going to make it past the first round of voting. I think they're going to have to go back and, if they're going to go with a 17 game season, they're going to have to give the players a little bit more to be able to get them to come on board.
Okay. Can I get a lock from this now?
I'm not confident enough to lock either way. I mean,
okay. Yeah.
Unfortunately, nothing is terribly certain here.
Yeah, maybe somewhere along this episode we'll get a lock because it's been a little while since we've had a Connor lock since the Super Bowl, really. But no, I don't know, man. I disagree with you here. I think that this is going to be passed first go around because it only needs 51% to pass. And the thing is yes, while most of the star players, most of the $30 million quarterbacks and stuff, they're fine with striking or whatever. They want to improve this deal, which definitely could be improved upon for the players' sake. But the problem is that these superstars are vastly outnumbered by the guys who need NFL game checks, and these guys who need NFL game checks, they're not going to want to hold out. They're not going to want to potentially miss revenue. Which could happen if there was a lockout. So I think with the pressure, they've got pressure in their mind that they want to just get this deal done because they don't want to lock out. And that's what makes this union so weak, in my opinion, because compared to other sports, there's much less players. The salaries are higher. Most of the union benefits are better. And the NFL just seems to be like the average career for an NFL player is only 3 years. So and then another thing too is the players' priorities. The players for the most part don't seem to have great priorities for them to get approved because they're more worried about marijuana and and less training camp days and stuff. So the owners, they don't care at all. Trust me, they don't care at all about the marijuana thing. That's why that's in this new CBA is the you can have a higher amount in your system, and the testing dates are narrowed. So it's not a complete ban, but it's definitely a lot easier to get away with it. And also, they're gonna cut some training camp days or something like that, which the players are we want less practices or whatever. So that's the thing. That's their priorities, which the owners are okay with. They could really care less about that sort of thing. But if these players were to demand lifetime health care or something like that, that's going to actually come out of the owners' wallets, then I think we would see a lot uglier situation here. But it just seems to me that most of these players don't really care about those sort of issues. And with the 17 games, if they're getting this extra revenue and they're getting this revenue increase, it's a trade-off, and these owners aren't going to budge on that. That's the thing. These owners are billionaires. If their teams, if they got to go into a lockout, trust me, they're going to be fine. Most of these owners have plenty of other revenue streams other than the NFL, so they can definitely survive without football. But it's the players that are divided, and that's why ultimately in the end, I think all these negotiations are always going to be won by the owners, yeah, the players are going to get a bump in revenue. Yeah, they're going to get certain perks, but for the most part, the owners are going to get what they want, which is this 17th game, which they've wanted, it seems like, for a while. So it's going to be crucial, the players' votes coming up. And I've heard players say that they're for it, they're against it, but I do think it's going to pass just because of all those players out there who are afraid of it not passing and having a lockout. But it's crazy because this is a year before this current deal is up. So they're renewing this way earlier than I thought they would be, honestly, in my opinion. Connor, what do you think about that? Like, should the players have just wait for this to go for the previous CBA to finish, or you think that's like a problem with them?
I mean, I think there's something that they have to get it done early. I mean, because if they wait until the previous CBA is over, then then what happens when you do end up into a lockout situation? Because as long as the current CBA is in place, they still play and everything. It doesn't stop
Mm-hmm.
until the current one, until the previous one ends. So if they can go ahead and get it done as early as possible, I think that's good for everybody because it means that we're going up to, a new season. There's no worry about, oh, are the players going to lock out? What with this, that, and the others. Like, it's already figured out. And
Mm-hmm.
we can just get along. We can stop focusing on that and keep focusing on football. I know especially like in this off season, we're wanting to focus on the big name free agents that are going to be out there. Where are all these quarterbacks going to go? Where are all these,
Mm-hmm.
all-star players going to go? We'd rather focus on that and also
Yeah.
like, the potentials for what the season's going to be than, oh, are they going to even have a season? Like, are they going to figure out what they're doing? And is there going to be a lockout like there was 10 years ago? Which, I mean, obviously that lockout didn't extend into the season, but there was a good chance that it, was going to. And honestly, like you said before, I know last time the players caved in and the owners won that CBA, but I'm not sold on the fact that the owners are always going to win because at the end of the day, I know they have a lot of money and I know that they can afford to not have the league going on, but there's going to be a tremendous amount of pressure on them to get stuff done and make concessions because at the end of the day, the people don't care about the owners, what they want, because
Yeah.
they don't go to the games to see the owners. Like, oh, look, there's, Jerry Jones or Art Rooney up in the box. Like, woo, they come to see the players and
Yeah.
they come for the league. They expect there to be football, starting the first week of September, at least for the regular season. Obviously the preseason starts earlier, but come that first week of September, they expect there to be
Yeah.
NFL football going on. And that's what they're paying their money and buying merchandise and all that stuff for the the teams, which is a big source of income for the teams, is the merchandise and the ticket sales.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's at $0.00, even though the owners, yeah, they got lots of money, they're still losing a lot of money when that comes around because they're not getting in that main source of income. So, and I know that like obviously you have all those players that need those NFL contracts week to week or whatever to make their living, but I do think that some of the players have a large amount of influence over them and they're able to control them to a certain extent. Like guys like Aaron Rodgers and JJ Watt, they can go up to these players that, you know, I can't really think of anybody's name, but one of these guys who, needs his NFL contract and goes,
Yeah.
hey, I know you really need that contract, but, you know, I'm really influential and I'm one of the biggest stars in this league and they're going to want to come to my side. So just stick with me and you'll get everything you want. It may hurt for a little bit, but you'll get whatever you want. And that way they can kind of coerce players to their side when in reality, that's not the case. Like they're going to be losing their NFL contract. But from a perspective, it's like politics,
Mm-hmm.
basically.
Yeah.
Making promises that in the end might not actually be kept. But, at the time they sound really good. So I'm not 100% sold on the owners always that the owners are always going to get their way. But it definitely is a balancing act. And it's definitely a competition and politics are heavily involved. But like I
Yeah.
said, but to your earlier question, I do think it's good that they're getting this deal done now if it's going to get
Yeah,
done
yeah, definitely for
because
fans.
yeah,
We
it's
we
definitely
want
way better.
this. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then so you've talked to me about how you don't think that there should be a shortening of the preseason, and I'll say this too. I would have no problem if they kept status quo for preseason, 16 regular season and then just the 6 playoff teams per conference, I would have no problem with that. I'm not, pounding my fist on the table for this to happen, but like I do think it is going to be a win for to have the 17 games, just because that last preseason game, like you said, it's really mainly played by people who are going to be ended up being cut from the team. So it's kind of a wash game. Nobody watches it. And if there's another regular season game, it makes it more competitive. I don't know how it's going to work with like having an extra home game or extra road game, or if they're going to do every team play at a neutral site for one game. I don't know how that's going to work, but I do think it's going to be a win for the fan. But do you think that it's going to like diminish the quality with more injuries or something like that?
I don't know if it'll really diminish the quality. I know the reason why I was against like removing that 4th preseason game, it wasn't from a fan's perspective, because obviously, I don't watch it, you don't watch it, nobody watches it because it's pointless. But I know from like a head coach and a general manager perspective that having that 4th preseason game is really important, because it just gives you more time to assess like, okay, if I've got a young rookie that I really want to look at and see how they're doing at the NFL level, obviously it's not, major competition, but at least to see how they're doing, I have more time to analyze them and see what they're doing, because you don't really know anything in training camp. Like, Nathan Peterman looked really good in training camp, and we all saw how that turned out. So it's more so that they have more time to analyze and figure out who they're going to cut and who they're going to look to for the future. Instead of when you remove that 4th preseason game, it's like, well, now you've only got 3 chances to do that. And obviously that 3rd preseason game is going to turn into the 4th preseason game where it's just a bunch of scrubs playing. So now, your starters are going to get even less time to prepare, because they're probably only going to play, they'll probably play the first series maybe of the first game, or still not play at all. And then like maybe the first quarter of the second game, but that's it. They're getting maybe 1 quarter of action at most in the preseason, rather than possibly like a whole half, or maybe even like over the span of the preseason, a full game.
Yeah.
So, but definitely from a fan's perspective, it's way better, because nobody watches the preseason. And I would be, like you said, really interested to see how they would handle the whole like home and away thing. I mean, obviously some of these teams are playing games in London and Mexico City anyway, so that can kind of compensate for them. But for the other teams, it's like, okay, well, who do we want? How would they figure that out? I don't know I'm pretty sure the scheduling would probably stay pretty similar. You would probably just play one more. I would like if they added, I don't know what their plan is, but I think if they're going to do this, they should add one non-conference game against because the only time you play someone in the other conference is you get one division that you play against. So like, the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to play, I don't remember which division, but like say they're playing the NFC South. Those are the only NFC teams they're playing. And the next time they play those teams is going to be 4 years down the road, or 4 seasons down the road, once every 4 seasons. So I would like it if that 17th game, because you play your 6 division games, 4 non-conference against 1 division, then you play against 4 in your conference against a division, and then 2 other in-conference games. I think they should add 1 more out-of-conference game if they're going to do that. So that way NFC and AFC teams can play each other a little bit more than just like, once every 4 years. I think that'd make it a little bit more interesting if they did that. I'm not saying I don't know what they should do for home or away. Maybe like flip a coin or something. I don't know, like alternate. But I don't think
they'd flip a coin. It'd be alternating. But
just like alternating. But like that 17th game I think should be an out of conference game.
Yeah, I personally, as a Jaguars fan, I do hope it's the every team has to play an international game, because now we're playing 2, so that means, okay, one of them is going to be quoted for the international game. So now we only lose 1 home game, technically. We back to 7 in Jacksonville home games. But I do like your suggestion, though, where each team plays another NFC team. I'm not sure if that's going to be the case, but what do you think if they did like a protected rival thing, where you have like the Cowboys and Texans, since they're in different conferences, but now they're like a protected rival. They'll play every year, and like the Redskins and Ravens and different stuff that you normally don't get to see. There's still rivalries, Jets, Giants,
Oh yeah.
but
Yeah.
and then every team will have that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that'd be interesting because you're right. There's so many of these in-state rivals that only play each other every 4 seasons. Like you mentioned, Dallas and Houston and Washington and Baltimore, but like Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, like you said, the
Yeah,
Giants and
there's
the
lots.
Jets, the Jaguars and the Buccaneers, the Dolphins and the Buccaneers, the Jaguars and the Buccaneers.
I think Jags
Like,
Panthers would probably be, since they came in the league at the same time.
yeah,
I think that makes sense. So
yeah, Jags and Panthers, or like there's 4 California teams, and they
yeah,
don't always play each other all the time, or you know, the Ohio teams play each other every year because they're in the same division. But yeah,
you could make out a realistic rival for each team, basically. I
right,
think.
yeah, and there's a lot of even a team that doesn't have an in-state rival like the Broncos. Maybe they play like the Patriots every year or something.
Yeah,
they have like
or not the they're the
no,
AFC.
right, okay, sorry, the NFC. Like I don't know, maybe they play the I don't know.
Packers, maybe
the
something like
Packers, or they could figure something out that they could play a team every year that is their rival, or like like you said, the Panthers could play the Jaguars, or again like the Steelers and Eagles. That way, at least those in-state rivals can play their in-state rival every season. It's kind of odd that it's like they talk about these big rivalries like Eagles and Steelers and Jets and Giants, and it's like they never play each other.
Yeah.
So what makes it that big of a rivalry if they're never playing each other? So I do like that idea of having a protected rivalry, and it would give you, teams and fans that are in closer proximity even more to, root for and I don't know, get excited about.
Yeah.
Because I know like when we are just like between us, like if the Panthers and Jaguars had a protected rivalry, then like even though the Panthers aren't my favorite team, they're my second favorite team. So at least that could be something that you, me, and Eric could always look forward to every year.
Yeah.
Like, okay, this Jaguars Panthers game, and maybe like I could go down to Jacksonville, or you could come up to Charlotte or whatever to see these games, rather than they never play each other, so who cares? I mean, are we really gonna like go up to Pittsburgh to go see the Steelers play the Jaguars? Like.
Yeah. It would definitely make things a lot more interesting. I think I would like that to happen, but we'll see what it ends up being. Like, it's weird now. It's gonna like the balance is gonna be removed now. It was all like even numbers and everything like that.
Getting into odd numbers
now they're gonna have to be creative. Yeah.
I mean, at least with the playoff teams, like that's not going to change at all. It's why there's no controversy around that, because it's just another team getting in the playoffs. Yeah. Like,
who's probably going to lose, but still, like.
Yeah, but I mean, at least they have a chance. It gives you more of a chance, and I mean, I definitely think like when it comes to future playoff expansion, if they're going to expand it again to like add another 2 teams, that's probably as far as they can go.
Yeah.
Because once you get to 16 teams, like okay, you're at 50%. That's what the NBA and the NHL do. Like 50% of the teams get in. So they're definitely, but it does offer more teams a chance. Like, last year it would have been the Steelers and the Rams would have been in the playoffs last year if the rule had been in place. So, I mean, who knows? And also, in a way, it might be good for those teams because we always talk about first round bye rust. Not having that might actually be a good thing for those teams because there's not this this week off in between playing. I mean, we saw what happened to the Ravens. They got destroyed after the score didn't really show that, but if you were watching the game, that was pretty well domination by the Titans. So, and you were mentioning that you think that week off had a lot to contribute to it. So I think it could help at least the 2 seed. And then maybe
and then you're going to be playing the 7 seed too, so it's not like you're going to be a heavy favorite coming into that game.
Yeah,
so it's not like it's going to be super risky, but then you can always have upsets. Yeah. Still.
Well, and the other thing that it would do too is that obviously the 7 seed would always be the road team, but it would give the 6 seed an opportunity to have a home game possibly. True. It would make it better for the 5 seed too. I mean, because obviously the 1 through 4 are always going to have at least one home game, but it would make it better for the 5 seed and the 6 seed to actually potentially have a home playoff game.
Yeah, we'll see what ends up happening there, but that's just at least from the CBA from us guys. That's our opinion. it. And now we'll move on to the next Burrow. He, finally put the rumors to bed, and he said he would play for the Bengals. And now everybody's like, oh, okay, like damn. But because man, if he decided to hold out or something, that would be a major story. And I wonder if he had said to the Bengals, if he was like, if the Bengals pick me, I'm not playing for them. I wonder if that would have made them pick Tua or still be stubborn and taking him, and then be like, all right, you're not gonna play, I guess. And I think they would have done that because the Bengals seem like the kind of team that like never makes trade. They're one of those type of teams, like a Redskins sort of a team. So I think they would probably
fire
still
Marvin Lewis. So
yeah. They're kind of like the Redskins in my opinion. They're similar to them with dysfunction. But I'm a Burrow fan and I don't like it because I think he's going to be a really good quarterback, but I'm afraid the Bengals are going to ruin his career. And it's not even so much with the talent; it's just the culture there. I guess it's just so bad. I would much rather see Burrow with the Dolphins or the Chargers. Connor, what do you think? Do you think if he decided to hold out that the Bengals would trade him if they picked him, or you think they would just stay away from him in general? Like, do you think he could have actually held out, or do you think he should? Do you think he should try and like make the Bengals champions? Or
I mean, I would agree with you that I don't see the Bengals being too wavering on their decisions because if anything, I don't think the Bengals would switch. Like, I don't think they would switch and take Tua or, obviously it'd be a reach to take Justin Herbert, but I don't think they would switch their pick at that point. I think if anything, if Burrow was going to hold out, the Bengals would look to trade that pick and try and get a lot out of it. Because I know there was some rumors circling around that the Bengals were listening to offers for that first pick.
yeah.
So if that would be probably the extent of what they would do. I don't think they would change to go and pick Tua or Justin Herbert or Chase Young or anybody like that. So, but I don't like you said. I think the Bengals are stubborn. I think they still would have picked him anyway, even if he'd been like, oh, I don't want to do that or whatever. I don't want to go play for the Bengals. So, I mean, it's something that I think has changed with the culture. Like, you used to be able to do that. Like, I know John Elway did it with the Broncos, and Eli Manning did it with the Chargers. He got his daddy to call up the Giants, and I don't want to play for the Chargers, or so. I think you used to be able to do that, but I don't think you can really do that anymore. It's something that's kind of, if you get picked by a team, then that's.
I mean, it depends because for example, Elway, he was a baseball player. If Kyler Murray were in this spot, he was a baseball player, he had options. Burrow doesn't have that. Football's his sport, so he doesn't have those kind of options. But it would be like an Eli situation, and I don't see it happening either.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't have a daddy who has a big influence in the league or anything. So, like you said, his options are all cut out because and the same thing with Bo Jackson. Actually, I remember. This is actually a fascinating story the first time I heard it about him and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah.
How basically the Buccaneers completely ruined his life basically when he went to college. They basically they did something that ruined his college eligibility and because he wanted to go back for another season at college, but the Buccaneers did something that completely ruined that and completely abandoned his trust. So Bo Jackson was like, screw you guys, and they picked him, but he was like, nope, I'm going to play baseball, bye. So, but like you said, Joe Burrow doesn't have those options. He's not a baseball player. He's not a basketball player. He doesn't have anywhere else he can go. I mean, obviously he has a college degree, but I'm not even sure what it's in because most of these athletes have degrees in exercise science or whatever.
I mean, unless he's some really high level degree, football is going to generate the most money for him.
Oh yeah, unless you're you're planning to go to Harvard Law School after this or something, football, especially when you're a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback, like you can make some big money being in the NFL. So, yeah, I just don't see like I don't think he could have done it anyway, but it's obviously not in his best interest to do it either. So, I mean, for all the rumors and everything, I remember when I heard that coming out, and I was just like, no, there's no way that's gonna happen.
Okay.
Like,
Yeah. So I'll give you this like thought question. If let's say do you think if he were to go to like, for example, the Dolphins or Chargers, that he would end up having a better career than if he's gonna be with the Bengals?
I
Or
don't know. At
or
this,
do you think it's not gonna matter?
well, it's funny because with those three teams, they're all in such a funk right now. I think the Dolphins would be his best option
Mm-hmm.
because obviously the Dolphins have, they have all these draft picks that they've managed to, accumulate over the past season. And so obviously he would have to deal with the fact that his first season is probably going to suck. Like, I know we're probably all going to be picking Miami to finish last in the AFC East next year. But he's just going to have to deal with that. But over time, the Dolphins they could kind of do what the Browns did. I mean, the Browns parlayed all this money and all these draft picks into a superstar team. Obviously, it's Cleveland, so it didn't work out, and it probably still won't work out. But, I think the Dolphins could have better success with that because the culture is just different, like you mentioned. And Cincinnati kind of has that same, like, Cleveland culture to where even if they have a really good team, it's just like, they're going to be in the dumpster. And it's just not a good environment to be in. And, I do think it's gonna, they ruined Carson Palmer, and they always talk about, there were these people on Facebook that were like, oh, like they ruined Andy Dalton. I'm like, I don't really think they ruined Andy Dalton because Dalton never really had it.
Yeah.
But like, he was always just kind of an average quarterback. But I do think they ruined Carson Palmer. So, and obviously now with the whole drama going on with AJ Green and, are they going to tag him? Are they not going to tag him? And obviously the Bengals, they don't really have a whole lot. They don't have the draft picks and stuff that the Dolphins have to back it up. They're going to go into next year a dumpster fire just like this year.
Yeah.
So,
now that I'm thinking about it though, like I think his ideal spot, if he could pick, would be like the Panthers. Because his guy at LSU is now the offensive coordinator, Joe Brady. He's now in Carolina, so that's a better team to begin with, and you're going to be coming with your college coach. So.
Right. Well, and also with the Chargers, like, why it's worse for him there is that the Chargers is just, having the fact that you're not going to have like a support base because the Chargers have like zero support base right now. And I know they're supposed to be moving into the new stadium this upcoming season, but like, I'm interested to see how much that really changes anything because, the core base of the Chargers fan base is still in San Diego. Do they really want to make that, 2.5 hour drive or whatever it is to LA, like every Sunday there's a game, and there's not a whole lot of Chargers fans in LA. Most of them, if any, are football fans. They're Rams fans, and there's not a whole lot of Rams fans.
Or Raiders even.
Like, or Raiders fans that are probably going to, they'd rather watch the Raiders. So it's just not the Dolphins, or not the Dolphins, the Chargers and the Bengals just aren't good programs to be a part of right now, especially with the Chargers where they're dismantling at this point. If the Chargers still had the pieces in place, then I would say, maybe he could go there. But the Chargers are definitely headed for a rebuild. They're, Phillip Rivers is leaving.
Mm-hmm.
The defense is just breaking down. I mean, they still have Joey Bosa, but and all these issues between, who's the running back, Melvin Gordon or Austin Eckler, like the Chargers are headed for a rebuild. So I think the Dolphins have the brightest future ahead of them. I think he could even do better. I know you didn't mention these other teams below, but I think he could do okay at like you said, the Panthers. Or it's funny because I'm looking at all these other teams that are like early in the draft that, I mean, obviously the Redskins and the Giants and the Cardinals won't take him if for some reason he were to slip because they already drafted quarterbacks last year. But I think he could do okay in Detroit if for some reason If for some reason Detroit was ready to move on from Matthew Stafford, I think he could have a good career in Detroit. Because, I mean, Detroit is really like, they've never been, fantastic, but at least they've got a better culture going up there. The fans are passionate. The organization really wants to, make success out of their team. So they're looking out for the interests of the team and the fans in Detroit, whereas I don't see that happening in Cincinnati or for the Chargers.
Yeah, that's where we are with Burrow. So he's going to be a Bengal, guys. It's just a hypothetical sort of thing we're talking about here. But it'll be interesting. I still think he's gonna be good, but I do think the Bengals are gonna be like holding him back from being like a year two Patrick Mahomes type of guy, in my opinion. But we'll see. We'll see how it all shakes out. I know you hope he won't, being a Steelers fan, but
Yeah, I'm never gonna have any like for the Bengals, so I
yeah.
wasn't the biggest LSU fan to start with either. So
Okay. All right, Connor, tell us about the XFL, and then we'll do our power rankings sometime here too.
yeah, so speaking about the Cincinnati Bengals, so one thing that I know was thrown around a little bit. There wasn't a whole lot of super serious talk about this, but at least it was an idea that was thrown around that, you know, the best team at the end of the season, at the end of the XFL season, the best XFL team, whoever wins the championship would play the lowest ranking NFL team. Now, if the NFL team won that game, they would, everything would stay the same. But if the XFL team won, then the XFL team would move up into the NFL, and the NFL team would be relegated to the XFL, kind of like what the Premier League does. And I know I've talked about this before in the past, like with college football, talking about teams moving up conferences and mentioning how it works in soccer in Europe, how they have like A leagues and B leagues, and the teams that are the worst at the end of the year in the A league will fall down to the B league, and the B league champions will move up to the A league. So this was thrown around. I have the Houston Roughnecks up here on the graphics since they are 3-0 right now. They're the top team in the XFL against the Cincinnati Bengals, the worst team in the NFL. But as cool as this might sound on paper, it's unfortunate when you start to really dig into the details about it, how impossible it actually seems to happen. So I wanted to mention like some of the good things about it first. I think a good thing for it to be would be, I think it would definitely discourage tanking in the NFL, because I know the NBA and the NHL already do that when it comes to the draft lottery. So like even if you are the worst team in the league, and you have a high chance to get that number one pick, you're not guaranteed to get it. We saw it with the Knicks last year where, there was all this talk, oh, Zion to the Knicks, Zion to the Knicks. And then the Pelicans won the lottery and they ended up getting Zion. So sucks to be the Knicks, but it's definitely something that would discourage tanking, because even if you're so confident that, oh, we can beat this XFL team, who knows? Anything can happen. And if you lose, now you're stuck, in the XFL and you've just lost your spot.
Your world changed.
Yeah, your world just completely gets put on a 180. So I think it would discourage tanking. And I do think it would bring a bigger fan base to the XFL, because then people would be paying more attention to it. Because I feel like right now, I know Eric talked about this, that the key for the XFL is to get that fan base and make sure that the attendance doesn't go down and the ratings don't go down too much and whatnot, and keep up the fans. Well, if there was the possibility that they could, move up into the NFL, where they were going to have a competition with the NFL, I think that would increase viewership. It would bring more fans and they pay more attention to these, teams that are doing really good, like Houston and DC and St. Louis. Like, man, these teams could be contenders. Who knows if they could beat, the Cincinnati Bengals or the Washington Redskins? Could they possibly get a spot? So I think it'd be good for the fans. And I think it also, again, would be good for the players in the XFL, because they're trying really hard right now to get a job in the NFL. Most of them are, maybe they were former NFL players who didn't quite cut it, or they were, really good college prospects that didn't make it into the NFL. It would certainly open up more of an avenue for them to play at the highest level. So while there are good things, there's a lot more bad things and challenges that come with this. So first and foremost being, a lot of them are actually parallels to what I said is good things. First would be the fan support. You've got these teams that say that doesn't happen and the Houston Roughnecks end up making it to the NFL. Well, does the NFL really want a team in the league that's only, filling the stadium to like 30% capacity playing every Sunday? Is that really a good idea? And then you have a team like Cincinnati who, has a really large and loyal fan base, and they're stuck watching B League football. Like, I'm pretty sure that would be a little bit of an outrage from the fan base from
Yeah.
from the NFL fan bases. And secondly, when it comes to, the players, for them, obviously it's better exposure and a better chance to get into the NFL. But what happens when it comes to salaries would be my thing, because obviously in the XFL, they're giving out, what is it, $100,000 to the team who wins? Obviously in the NFL, so for the players who, like, again, say the Roughnecks beat the Bengals, those players all of a sudden are like jumping for joy. They're going to start making at least, I think the league minimum is $480,000 a year. So they're jumping.
It's going to go up too, to potentially to increase to 100,000. So.
Right. So these players are jumping for joy. They're all of a sudden making, big bucks. And obviously the ones that are better are could start making into the millions. But what's going to happen to all these players on the Bengals all of a sudden? Like, if AJ Green's making like a $17 million contract, and then all of a sudden now you're in the XFL playing for $100,000. It's like, I don't think that's going to work out too well. I'm pretty sure that there would be a little bit of problems with that. So, I mean, who's to say that, like, the owners could still keep paying their players the same amount? I mean, there's no, to say with that. But obviously, it could be more challenging if you're not getting as much attendance and ticket sales and merchandising going on, since now you're an XFL team. So there's that going on. And then you have, I think, if this was to ever become a reality, this is another thing Eric talked about, or at least you guys talked about on the XFL podcast, is that there would need to be an owner for each team. It couldn't be just Vince McMahon owning all 8 teams, because, I mean, obviously this is a highly impossible scenario, but who's to say, like, if for some reason all 8 XFL teams ended up in the NFL one day, you're just gonna have 8 teams in the NFL owned by Vince McMahon? Like, I don't think that's gonna happen either. I mean, I don't think he's got the financial. I mean, I know he's he's not quite a billionaire. He's a millionaire, but he should be a billionaire. But can he really support and look after 8 teams, that are going on the season? I remember what caused the USFL to collapse partially was when Donald Trump started to get involved with the USFL. It caused a lot of problems. I remember watching the 30 for 30 on that. So, and he started like buying up some of these teams, and I'm like, I don't think there needs to be a single owner for each team. And I know that should probably happen in the future anyway. Even with the XFL, they should probably get their own owners, but that would be an issue. And I know obviously this wouldn't be an issue for every team, but at least looking at the Tampa Bay Vipers and the New York Guardians, they share stadiums with NFL teams. And I don't think it would be as big of a deal for the Vipers because, the Jets and Giants already have it worked out with 2 teams. The Rams and Chargers are going to have it worked out with 2 teams. So the Vipers and the Bucks wouldn't be a big deal. But say the Guardians were to move up into the NFL. Now you've got 3 teams occupying MetLife Stadium. I'm not sure how you would work out home and away games. And are you going to all of a sudden tell the Guardians, like, sorry, you have to go find a new place to play? And I'm not sure there's any other stadiums in the New Jersey area for them to play in. And the last thing I wanted to touch on before I asked Zach his opinion on this is with the XFL NFL championship game. Now, what would have to happen for that to work is currently, because the XFL playoffs are in March, or are they in April, early April? I can't remember.
It's like March or April.
Yeah, like late March, early April. So are you going to tell me that, when the XFL playoffs are done in early April, that now, again, say the Houston Roughnecks win, you're going to pull the Cincinnati Bengals out to go and play a game against them now? Because, that's already been long decided. The Bengals have been done playing since December. So you can't pull that NFL team and all of a sudden be like, okay, time to play a game. Like, wait, what? We're in the middle of the offseason. Like, we can't do this. So you would have to move the XFL season to where it's going at the same time as the NFL, which obviously would be bad for the XFL because people are going to watch the NFL. They're not going to watch the XFL. They don't care. And, it kind of takes away from the novelty of the XFL because the XFL is supposed to be this separate league that when the NFL is done, you can have something else to watch besides, just basketball, for football fans, because not a lot of them are basketball or hockey fans for the most part, so they can have more football to watch year round. Well, now if it's going at the same time as the NFL, you're taking away from the novelty of the XFL, and its viewership and attendance would go way down, in my opinion. So let's just I wanted to see what Zach thinks about this before we do our power rankings.
Yeah, I do think this is almost like impossible thing to happen just with all the hurdles and all the obstacles. And another thing too is what NFL owner is going to subject themselves to want to do this because the NFL isn't just going to be like, okay, guys, the worst team's getting kicked out now. Like, they're going to like, I don't think any owner would want any chance of this happening to their team because, like you said, financially, the NFL is so much bigger than the XFL. So, but it is a fun thing to think about. And another thing too, I think that would have to happen is there would have to be more XFL teams and they'd have to be spread out in non-NFL cities because there's some situations where there's already like hard, Tampa Bay is an example of like a city, an NFL city, which is low in attendance in all these categories. So if you were to potentially have the Vipers and Buccaneers playing in the NFL, I mean, that's two teams in a small NFL market. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you would need like St. Louis would be a good one, because that's a big market. They used to have a team, so they've done it before, but the XFL would have to expand, which I do think would be interesting if they did expand just for the XFL's sake. But
Bring a team to
but
Raleigh.
hey, there you go. So you'll stop being a Defenders fan if the Raleigh team comes up?
Oh, I will. Especially if
Okay.
they start playing their games at Carter Finley Stadium, I'll get to go watch them.
Yeah. So it's a lot to happen. But the first thing that comes to mind though was like what NFL owner is going to want this, and but
Mhm.
as far as like a realistic strategy to curb tanking, and it's something people have talked about is having a game at the end of the year like a tank bowl where you have the two worst teams play each other and the winner gets the number one pick. But to me, that's good and all, but to me, I'm worried that like there's going to be a quarterback on one of those teams that knows that he's going to get replaced if their team wins. So he's just going to throw interceptions, and it's not going to be good to watch.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's going to be the opposite of the NBA All-Star game. It's going to be all defense instead of offense.
yeah, it's like all these teams trying to lose. So, um, but I don't know. I don't know like how big of an incentive that is to players on the team already, but also at the same time, that's for a fan's perspective, that's way more entertaining than watching ping pong ball. And you don't even get to watch the ping pong balls in the NBA anymore. I'm not sure how hockey does their lottery, but the
It's
NBA, they
probably
just read like cards. Yeah.
it's probably the same way.
Okay, yeah. But they used to do ping pong balls, which is at least like kind of entertaining, not as nearly entertaining as a game would be, but still, I don't know if that would happen or not, but that would be something to curb tanking. So that way you have to like earn your number one pick. But yeah, I don't know, man. Like it's fun to think about, but um, I just don't see it happening. The XFL's got to worry about the XFL right now. They can't be thinking about joining or competing and merging like the
Mhm.
AFL and NFL did long ago. So
Yeah,
it's
the AFL became a powerhouse before it was able to merge with the
yeah,
NFL.
maybe I think that would have to be like the best chances in like 100 years, like the XFL and NFL like merged together. Like I think that could be a thing, but and then there's so many teams because population's grown crazy and there's like teams all over the place. Like I watch some of these crazy YouTube videos where they're like 100 NFL team experiment and then they show all these mock teams and stuff like that. Would be a way for that stuff to actually become realistic, but and it would be fun to watch. It'd be fun to watch the Bengals play the Roughnecks because honestly, I think the Roughnecks would give them a chance. Would
Yeah.
have a chance to win based on how they've played and how the Bengals played last
when,
year.
when,
So
when
I
it's
don't
not
think,
just it's not just like when these people talk about like college teams playing NFL teams because the college teams would have no chance.
yeah,
It's like they're always like, oh, Alabama could beat Cincinnati. Like, no, they couldn't. But like the Houston Roughnecks, these are like NFL. At least they're trying to be NFL caliber level
yeah.
teams and players. So the Roughnecks could give them a chance, like you said.
The question is though is what rules do they play by?
Oh, that's true. I didn't even think about that.
Do they go by NFL rules or XFL rules? Because there are some big differences. But
I guess they'd
or
probably
maybe
go
you do
by.
a combination of both. Maybe you like
Yeah.
pick some NFL rules and some XFL rules. But
Well, I guess at least by default they'd probably go by NFL rules, but
probably, yeah. If the NFL would be gracious enough to let these peasant XFL teams join them. But yeah, that's what I think. But what do you think about like that tank bowl thing that I suggested, like the two worst teams playing?
yeah, I feel like it almost have to be in my mind like a tank tournament in a way, because I know if that's going to happen, then who's to say you're going to have all these teams that are just trying to lose, like and you're going to have a much larger plethora
True.
of teams that are finishing like 13-3 or and 14-2 because they're beating up on all these teams that are trying to lose. So I feel like if you're going to do that, you can't just relegate it to one or two teams. It would have to be like a 6 or 8 team tournament. So that way, you don't just have all these teams trying to tank and be the worst team. At least you can do semi okay and still, have a chance.
Yeah, it's interesting to think. There's been a lot of hypotheticals here on the show, but yeah, they're fun to talk about.
Ever since we stopped talking about the CBA, it's been a lot of hypotheticals.
Yeah, CBA is like real news, and then now we're talking about like, oh, what about Joe Burrow going to Miami? Like that's like a fantasy, So, but this is a fun episode, Connor. Thanks for being a part of it with me.
Did you want to mention our power rankings before we go? I know we still got we got a little bit of time left.
Yeah,
so we this is actually Zach and I agreed on this when we did this. I was pretty surprised.
I know.
Normally we'd have at least one or two teams different, but we came up with our week 3 power rankings for the XFL. So obviously you've heard us talk about them a lot in this past topic, but number 1 on the list, the Houston Roughnecks. I mean, there's no slowing them down at this point. I know the Vipers, they gave them a good game, but PJ Walker's looking like the early favorite for MVP right now. So no surprise, Houston Roughnecks number 1. The St. Louis Battlehawks we have at number 2. The Battlehawks, they kind of came out of nowhere. They was kind of I don't think anybody really gave them a chance after week 1 when they beat Dallas 15-9. Everybody thought, oh, well, they don't have Landry Jones, so this is just St. Louis kind of is meh. They're not really that good, but then they came back and I can't remember who did they play in week 2. Did they play
They lost to Houston, but it was close.
That's right. They lost a close game to Houston. At Houston. And then they came back this week and just completely destroyed the Guardians. I mean, it was not even close. So, which obviously the Guardians aren't great, but Houston, St. Louis is looking like a good team. And obviously, I think for them, the biggest thing they have is, like you said, the fan support. Because St. Louis used to be where an NFL team was, and now they don't have that anymore. So they probably have the biggest fan support of anybody. But then number 3, we have the DC Defenders. The previous number 1, if we had released these before, we would have had DC at number 1. Pretty terrible showing out in LA by the Defenders. Didn't see that coming. They were far and away the best team for the first 2 weeks, but Cardale Jones looked like a shell of his former self, throwing 4 interceptions, and the Defenders just never
some
really...
Aaron Murray there. Got some Aaron Murray in him.
So, although unlike Aaron Murray, I'm not saying they should go away from him yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, they just looked like a shell of their former selves. I don't know if it was like the pressures of their first road game of the year or what, but we'll see if DC can come back from that. They got another road game against Tampa Bay this week, so we'll see how that goes. Then number 4, we have the Dallas Renegades and the face of the league, Landry Jones. The Renegades just haven't been spectacular. They've just kind of they've been quietly winning. They've just been okay. So, because I had considered moving DC below Dallas after that loss to LA, but they were just so dominant in their first 2 wins, and Dallas has just been kind of meh. So, we're going to keep Dallas at number 4. We're going to bump the LA Wildcats up to number 5. They were originally going to be, if DC had won, they were going to be last place in these power rankings, but after the tremendous performance they put on. Because the thing about LA is that people had always kept them 7th or 8th in the power rankings, but they actually weren't having terribly bad showings. Like,
Yeah.
they lost
First
by like
halves. They were good in the first halves in all their games.
Yeah, they gave Houston a run for their money in the first game, and then they played pretty decently the second week, and then obviously we saw what happened this week. So I think LA, they've got the oldest quarterback in the XFL, starting for them.
Yeah.
So they're trying to just kind of use that experience and build on it. So I mean, who knows? First home game for them, so good things could be coming. Number 6, we have the. Did we put the Vipers here, or did we? Why am I forgetting who the other two? The Seattle Dragons, yes, yeah. Seattle Dragons. They've also been kind of like they've been like the Renegades, just on the other side, like a very quiet 1-2. Like they kind of gave DC a little bit of a run in the first game, but after that, it's just been kind of quiet. Number 7, we do have the Tampa Bay Vipers. Some controversial officiating in the game against Houston, and controversial officiating and a close loss to the number 1 team in the league. We'll see if they can put it together and get their first win against DC, because now, unfortunately for them, with LA winning, they are the last winless team in the XFL. But we do have the number 7 on here above number 8, the New York Guardians, who, their only win came against the Tampa Bay Vipers, but they've just gotten absolutely destroyed the past 2 weeks. Matt McGloin, it's crazy. I thought he was going to be like the second best quarterback behind Landry Jones coming into this league, and he's just been horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those things. Yeah. I'm surprised the Guardians haven't moved on from him yet. I'm interested to see if, the backup.
He did get benched, actually.
Well, it's funny because he got benched in the game against in the previous week when they were playing against DC. He got benched, but like they were claiming like, it was like injury related. So,
yeah.
I mean, hopefully, at least for their sake, we'll see if they come back with the backup next week, because McGloin and the Guardians have been horrible.
Yeah, and I know they're back. I can't remember his name, but he played at North Carolina, so you might know who he is.
Oh yeah, if someone has his name, I'll remember it, because I remember you mentioned that, and I was like, he's playing for him. So
yeah.
But yeah, so that's our week 3 XFL power rankings. We'll try and see if we don't release them on the podcast, then we'll at least post them to Twitter in the future. So look out for more of those.
Yeah, every week we'll come up with these power rankings. We probably won't agree on them every week, but this is a good week that we agreed on them, because actually our next episode, guys, is going to be pretty special. It's going to be, we're going to combine and think about a bunch of different NFL related topics that we, at least Connor and myself and maybe Nate or Eric, whoever's in the show, that we disagree on. So we'll be having some like philosophical debates on what do you do in certain situations, what's your strategies, what's your tendencies, those sort of things. So this is the last agreement before the next episode. There's going to be a lot of disagreeing, but yeah. So we'll be doing the power rank.
Yep, and I will say, since I know you wanted me to do this before we got to the end of the episode, let's see, I had this in my head, but I think in my head, as much as I was against it, like when I came into the episode, the more I've been thinking about it, I think I'm going to lock that the CBA will be passed on the first ballot, the first vote.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes, I will say that, because I know I was against it, but like I kind of thought about it some more, and I'm like, well, I made the argument against it, but I do see Zach's argument too, and I guess it does seem a little bit more likely. So we will lock the CBA being passed on the first vote.
All right, that's great news. We got another lock from Connor, so you still got some outstanding locks. Your Giannis MVP lock is going to be.
Jeez, man. That's looking like a success right now, dude.
That's by far if it happens, that'll be, standing ovation lock.
Oh man, I mean, he's just got to keep it up, man. He's been looking really good.
Yeah, and maybe for the next time we play Sports Jeopardy, you'll lock that you're going to win that.
I don't know how Nate does with making trivia shows, so we'll see how that goes.
I don't know. Yeah, so that was the episode, guys. Thanks for listening. We'll be back in a couple days. Like I said, with those disagreements about the NFL, should be a lot of fun. Stay tuned. Catch you guys later. Peace.
See ya.
For Eric. Peace. Said it twice.